Welcome to the interview on France 24. I'm Philip Crowther in Washington. Our guest on the interview today is Chris Ruddy, the chief executive of the conservative media organization Newsmax, and also a personal friend of the US President Donald Trump. Mr. Ruddy, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Philip.
First of all, the last time I saw you was just outside of the West Wing. You're about to meet the president, as I said, a friend of yours. You're a frequent visitor to Mar-a-Lago, his club in Florida. You get to go to the Oval Office. When was the last time you saw him and the last time you talked with the president?
Well, I usually don't reveal my timing of my conversations, but I think it's fair to say that I've spoken to him in person or on the phone fairly regularly since he was elected and then since he became president. And I've known the man for about 20 years. I've known him very well for about 10. And as you mentioned, I'm a member of Mar-a-Lago, but also from my media stuff, and I see him in New York. So we've known each other a long time, and I try to be as supportive as I can while wearing my news cap or news hat and being an independent journalist as well.
Well, the president is now on his very first trip abroad. He's been able to leave behind, in a sense, all the potential scandals, all the stuff that surrounds him right now, the investigations into Russia, a lot of legislative priorities that didn't quite work out for him. Do you know, or do you think he was simply happy to get out of here, to get out of Washington for a while?
The president didn't tell me what he thought about the trip, but I do know the president's a bit of a homebody. He likes to be close to home. He loves being close to his family and friends. He's not a guy that likes traveling on long trips. When he was at the convention in Cleveland for 3 or 4 days, I think you were covering that, almost every night he would get on his jet and fly back to New York so he could be in his bedroom at Trump Tower. So obviously he doesn't have that luxury. I'm hearing that people in the White House say the president's very happy with this trip and how it's going. He's getting a lot of positive feedback from friends in the Middle East and reaffirming alliances. And most importantly, he's bringing jobs back to America. He's signed that $110 billion deal with the Saudis. That'll be tens of thousands of jobs for Americans. And that's really the president's priority, is not the Russia scandal.
Well, we know he knows his way around business deals, but this is entirely new for him. A trip abroad as US president with so many potential diplomatic pitfalls. Is he somebody who is aware that any word, any tweet he might send can cause a diplomatic crisis, particularly in those countries that he's visiting on this first trip?
Well, I would say he's becoming aware. And I predicted that it would take about 6 months. Remember, this man is 70 years of age. He had a super successful career in first business and then in show business in Hollywood. And he did it by being himself, being very honest, very candid, and telling people and that helped him in the election, actually. Now he's president. He's actually not Donald Trump. He's the head of state. He represents the American people. There's been a learning curve to a degree. And I think on the tweets you'll find over time that he's going to be moderating those. And I think there'll be more people involved. And while he's away, we're seeing less tweets and people seem to be happier. And I think you'll see his poll numbers go up.
And the voters generally, those who voted for him, are still, according to the polls we have, very much siding with him. But let's just take this back to one specific example in Saudi Arabia, that speech that he gave addressing the whole Muslim world against radical Islamism, against terrorism. He seemed to have watered down his words quite a lot from what we heard on the campaign trail when he, remember, wanted to ban all Muslims from entering the United States in the first place. Do you think there's a risk here for the president of alienating his voters?
None at all. He has promised and vowed to wipe out radical Islamists like ISIS. They are making massive preparations to do that. I don't think in a year ISIS is going to exist. And I think that's going to be what really makes the voters happy at the end of the day.
You've been in the Oval Office twice, I believe, so far since he became president. And in a previous interview, you mentioned that something that you talk about a lot is Russia. This investigation that is going on, several investigations, I should say, into the possible collusion between the Trump campaign team and Russia. He has, over the last few days, said there is a witch hunt against him. Is that truly something that, first of all, you believe, And secondly, is this really something that the president believes, that everyone is out to get him?
From the known facts and what I know about some of the personalities involved, I believe it's a political witch hunt, yes. It's political leverage, the Democrats. They have a very popular guy. They just won an election. They all thought they were going to win, the Democrats. They have no real leverage over him. So there's been a lot of smoke about the Russian relationship. But let's go down to brass tacks for a second, Philip. There's never been an allegation that the president himself did anything wrong. There's never really been an allegation that anyone in the Trump campaign so far has done anything. They keep talking about collusion. What's the collusion? Obama's head of intelligence, James Clapper, said there was no evidence of collusion. The FBI director has testified before Congress. They found no evidence. According to the president, he had 3 conversations with the FBI director. There was no evidence of collusion. So this investigation's been going on for like 6 months. You have to ask yourself, why is it continuing if they haven't found any evidence?
But why does it look like Donald Trump is trying to not necessarily hide something, but there is a lot of talk about there's too much of a sign, too much of a smell of a cover-up right here. If there is no crime, if there's nothing that went wrong, why is he so unwilling to talk about it openly and to attack this head-on? He seems to want to hide something, or at the very least not talk about it.
I agree that that's generally the perception by the media. Having known Donald Trump for many, many years, I can tell you that this is not indicative where it might be for most people that they're hiding something, where they talk about it or they tweet about it. With Donald, with the president, it's very consistent with his personality. I've known the man. He frets about things like you and I might not think so important, and he focuses on them and responds. So if somebody attacks him or there's a story in the Washington Post, most of us or most political figures would be told, leave it alone, ignore it, it'll go away. Donald's not that way. He wants to respond. Somebody hits him, he wants to hit back. That's his personality. And it's led to this vicious cycle of negative reporting, and then the press keeps saying, he must be worried. No, he's angry and frustrated, I believe, but I don't think he's worried that there's anything there. And I don't believe that there is anything there. And there's no allegation he's done anything wrong.
The fact that he pushes back so much, though, is that about ego?
Well, I don't want to go deep into the psychology of why he does what he does, but I think, there's some people, and we've all met people in our lives, where they'll get worried about something that's inconsequential. We say in English, we'll say they're a worry wart, right? They worry about things needlessly, and I think sometimes the president gets focused on these extraneous issues. But the truth is, I always say there's 2 tracks. There's the showbiz personality with the president, he comes from that, but there's also the results thing, the performance. He's a business guy. His main focus is going to be jobs. That's been the priority. That's why he's dealing with the Chinese.
Let's look into the future just a little bit, finally. What could happen in the in the rest of the first term of this president? Maybe his only term, who knows? But what do you think will happen? First of all, in terms of foreign policy, where might the first confrontation happen?
Well, it's already happening. It's happening in Korea. The president has made it a priority. Every president since Truman has been kicking the can down the road on North Korea. And now they not only have nuclear weapons, which we have turned a blind eye on, they now have ballistic missiles. Some people think that it may be able to soon target the United States. The president of the United States, Donald Trump, says, this is not permissible. I'm not going to allow it. And I think he has pretty broad-based support for that. I think you could see a situation, they keep doing these tests. The president said they should stop. He gave them a warning. We could wake up one morning and see some very serious military action against North Korea. Now, whether that would spark a larger conflict, I don't know. But I think the president has made clear that he's willing to use a military option. And if anyone should be taken seriously on his word on that, it is Donald Trump.
Is this a president who sees a war in his future?
I think the president would like to avoid war. And the history of the United States is people like Theodore Roosevelt, Ronald Reagan, they spoke softly, had a big stick being the military. That's why Trump is trying to build up our military after the Obama years. I think they prevent wars. You know, Ronald Reagan famously said, America never went to war because we were too strong militarily. And I think Trump's approach will keep the peace.
Finally, we're not even near the first year of a first four-year term, but let me ask you this. Is your friend, the president, do you think he would want a second term, or has he won enough by springing the big surprise and becoming US president in the first place?
Only he can answer that question. I think he would be great as a second-term president. I think he would win. I know that people don't believe that now. They didn't believe he could win the first time. I think if he accomplishes a lot of what he wants to accomplish this first term in terms of tax reform and infrastructure and the military, I also think this is the type of guy where other presidents, political figures, very driven for the need for power. Donald Trump's not that type of guy, believe it or not. He's not, and he doesn't need the accoutrements of office. He had a plane as big as Air Force One. He has homes as beautiful as the White House. So for some people in their personal life, it's a step up, and the power is very, Trump wants the power to do things. He doesn't like the office just for the sake of saying I'm president. I think that if he has a very successful first term, it'll become apparent in years 3 and 4, there will be calls for him to run, and it's going to be hard for him to say no.
Mr. Ruddy, thank you very much for your time and your insights.
Thank you, Philip.
You've been watching the interview on France 24 with Chris Ruddy, the chief executive of the conservative media organization Newsmax, and as you just heard, somebody who knows the president rather well. Please do stay tuned to France 24. Plenty more news coming up.
People and Profit, presented by Stephen Carroll.
Business news is not about numbers, nor percentages and statistics.